Hello, my name is Judy Sweat. I'm the Early Childhood Coordinator at Pacer Center. This video was produced along with 3 of our multicultural staff to give you some ideas on how to work with families from diverse cultures. In working with families from diverse cultures, keep in mind that working within the special education system with its laws and variety of service providers can be very confusing to a family. The better you as a professional understand the laws and the various services, the better you will be able to explain them to a family in a way that the family can understand. Immigrant families and those facing language barriers may need more information about how the special education system works in order to effectively advocate for their children. This video provides some strategies that would be helpful.
My name is Jesus Villaseñor. I work at Pacer Center. I've been advocating for families for 22 years now, and one specific advice for professionals working with Latino families is the fact that it's important that the issue of confidentiality as a right that parents have under IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that they make sure that the parents understand confidentiality so that they feel more comfortable in sharing information. There's fear in the Latino community about immigration status subject, and so it would go a long way to know that they can trust the professional with their information if they know that that confidentiality will be respected. You know, as professionals in early childhood, it will be most likely the first professionals that the family start to relate to. And as you know, in early childhood, I think is where the bonds between family and professionals are stronger. So it is important that they feel that they trust their professionals. Many times, also to understand that it's important for families to understand what you're telling them and the process and what early childhood is, and it may take more than 1 or 2 sessions to explain some of the concepts or processes. Because of challenges in culture and language, it may take a little longer, but it will certainly go a long way to establish a comfortable relationship of trust in the notion that they really they feel more comfortable in accepting the help that they need, and also that at the same time they feel comfortable providing the dialogue that needs to exist in the exchange of information. It is important to know that you need to be a little patient in providing information to the family, in not overloading in a short period of time. Make sure that you will be repeating things and giving examples just to make sure that they are understanding. You know, keeping in mind that culture and language is a challenge in the communication. So when conveying information to the parents, just please keep checking for understanding, because just because they are nodding their head doesn't mean that they are understanding. It may, they may be nodding their head just to show you that they are attending to what you're saying, but doesn't necessarily mean that they either are agreeing with what you're saying or that they are understanding what you're saying. So keep checking for that. Make sure that you repeat it several times. Make sure to give examples or use even different words. Make sure also that they know who is whom in the role that everybody plays. So what is the role of the interpreter? What is the role of the therapist? What many times they won't even understand the diagnosis, the medical diagnosis that was given to them. So it would be very helpful if you can provide them with more information, ample information, using a language that they can understand, because doctors tend to be many times to using terms that are hard to grasp, so that they are more aware of what is happening to their child.
My name is Hassan Samantar. I am with a PACER. I'm a multicultural parent advocate. Work with the Somali communities in many different aspects. I would like to talk about a little bit about working with the families, predominantly Somali families that are from East Africa, in early childhood programs and services for professionals, ways that are culturally competent and understanding when working with families with the young children. To be truly effective when working with these families from diverse cultures, we need to be, first of all, very open-minded in our approach, understanding, respectful, and responsive to those differences that we have, those cultural differences that we do have. One of the most common misunderstanding that I would like to, as I said, bring to your attention is what professionals refer to as developmental milestones, which is a tool that many professionals use to gauge a child's either disability or ability. And many of these tools may not or may be normed for the culture. And sometimes the results could be either misunderstanding or completely different than what the true ability of the child is. Now, milestones is not something that is part of our culture as a Somali families. It's not something that many parents that pay particular attention to as to when the child reached or what age was the child reached when they reached those milestones. So often, the results might be guessing. It might be somewhat right in between. So I would ask professionals to be very cautious reading the accuracy of those results and be more careful. What would be very helpful is to ask more questions and to see if those responses are more accurate. Another thing that that it's a very common that I see when, especially early childhood and doing the screening, is some of those tools that we use to measure development, such as shapes, colors, and things in that nature, etc., etc. Those are things that chances are Somali kids are not exposed to those things. And so they may not be able to differentiate a square than circle, simply because it's not something that we teach children at home. And so lack of knowing those things, we have to be, a professional has to be very cautious not to read that there is some delay. Colors is another one. Just to be exactly, there's a few colors that we even have a terminology in our own language. To my knowledge, there's only four colors that we do have a Somali term. When asking a color such as a pink, an orange, or off red, be very cautious and mindful. Another thing that I really want to bring to your attention also is we came from a culture where kids grow their own pace. They get there when they get there. In our home countries, schools typically had the sole responsibility of educating the kids. So, many of our children, Somali kids, may not be exposed to or knowledgeable about certain things and school etiquette that we expect. For instance, when kids get to kindergarten, that they should perform, they should expect. So, things like staying in line, sitting in a circle, eating etiquette. In Somali homes, the fridge is for the children. Food should be available all the times, regardless what time. So you might find some adjustment period, especially in early childhood, kindergarten teachers and professionals that working with the Somali children. To be a little bit more rambunctious and more active. Hyperactivity is something that we encourage a lot for children to be more active. And so there is a time of adjustment when many of the Somali children are new to the system and to the school system and the school etiquette and things like that. One of the solutions that I recommend for professionals is to have a very educated or well-educated liaison, cultural broker to help you navigate through these cultural barriers or pitfalls sometimes professionals becomes a challenging. Somali culture is a culture that is a very respectful, and when communicating with the parents, a lot of times you may see nodding the head or giving a smile and being quiet about. You shouldn't be taking that as a sign of understanding of your message. It's a typically sign of a respect and acknowledging you that you're there, and especially if you're doing a home visit. And one of the ways to make sure is that your message is getting across is to ask as many questions as you can, to give a lot of examples, to rephrase things, to put things in a context that they can understand, that they can relate to. It's a very important. Have a relationship and have that communication relationship. It's a very important. In Somali culture, families really value the relationship that they have with the professionals more than even the services that their children are getting quite often. So to have that communication, open-end relationship, it's a very important. Acknowledgement, it's a very important. Make sure they have a point of a contact, someone they can contact if they have questions, if they have concerns. And often it would be very helpful to the family if it's one person who's taking the calls or the questions that have a good rapport and a relationship with the families.
Hi, I am Dao Shong, a multicultural staff at Pacer Center working with Asian American family of children with disability in Minnesota, and particularly the Hmong community here in Minnesota. I would like to talk about a helpful approach for early childhood professionals who follow up Hmong plans of children who may be referred to you because of having a developmental concern or who have been identified through early childhood screening as having a developmental concern. In a human natural experience, parents expect a healthy child, and how they view and measure their child development is dependent on the cultural, social, educational, and economic situation. For example, many Hmong families still view their child's physical being as their child's main development, despite the concern about their child's mental being. Many want to wait and see if the child will outgrow the concern. Others might be in the process or already consult with the elder or community healer for their advice and healing. When you or your interpreter call parents on your behalf for a meeting, explain the purpose of your call, how the developmental concern is identified, and explain the early childhood service process. that there are steps need to determine whether or not the child will qualify for services. And if the child qualifies, the process that will be used to identify services that the child needs and to get the services in place. Even when they reject your services, it's still important to let them know that the process. And who knows, they may call you later, so let them know that is an option as well. Even though the law about early intervention services talk about helping the family to help their child develop and grow, avoid any early subjection that services are to help family meet their child's needs because it might make them feel downhearted. You can say it when service is in place or when they already notice a benefit. Before the meeting ends, explain what are the next steps and who will involve in those steps, and encourage them to call or email you with questions about anything that has not been addressed or anything else they want to discuss further. Keep in mind that you and parent each play a different role, and their understandings of the role you play might not be clear. For example, they may refer to you as their child's teacher, even though you are an OT, a PT, or a speech therapist. Once you have established a relationship with the family, if your role ends and a new provider joins the team, be open to the communication and try to help the family establish a relationship with a new provider and become comfortable with the new person.
Thank you, Jesus, Hassan, and Dao. These tips were helpful. When school staff implement these strategies and respect the culture and value of the families with whom they are working, it leads to positive, trusting relationships with families. Through these relationships, families will feel supported and confident in parenting their children with special needs. Ultimately, this will lead to better outcomes for children and families.